Why do you think the Christ made that statement? Some people, I think they believe that is because you have to go to church, you have to be religious, you have to do this, do that. If that was the case, there'd be a lot of people going through that door to heaven, wouldn't there? But maybe you have to follow the path of the Christ through the lost journey of Jesus and
Right.
go through that in order to enter that gate. And maybe that's right around us if we could actually see it. Because when Adam and Eve were here, they could literally see from the garden the angels all around and all the creation going on around. So, what's your thoughts about the statement the Patriot just made here?
Well, yeah. I mean, the true teachings of Jesus is to follow what he did and do what he did. I mean, that make the application. The people think, well, I'll just surrender to a being and it's all over. And on a poem of prayer and a promise, I'm going to get to heaven. And the church sells that really big because it keeps people coming back to them and it keeps people deaf, dumb, and stupid. And that's what they would love to do. There's a lot of hierarchy in the different religions around the world that want you to think they have your best interests at heart when in truth they don't. Jesus always had our best interest at heart. He still does today. And he's attainable for you to see and experience in his golden body. But you're going to have to raise your personal vibration in order to do that. You know, I did a daily Lama just recently on personal development, Jim, and I gave a case for why people want to consider the 45-day challenge, because if you get into the 45 days challenge, you'll see what happened to Jesus on his journey that nobody wants to talk about. But we talk about it. Why would we talk about it? You see, it was a twofold reason that the Lamasery was involved in Jesus's life. We had our own prophecy, and we knew from the Magi and what they were, the insights they had with the Lamasery, that this incredible being was going to incarnate, you know? That was the case. The other thing that happens that's never really been said, that once the Lamasery showed up in Jesus's birth, Joseph, who was filled with the ransom of a kingdom, Joseph, who was the caretaker of young Jesus that would set up everything, basically commissioned the Lamasery to protect him all throughout his journeys and take him. The Lamasery wouldn't accept a penny. The Lamasery, when the Magi shows up and sees that what has happened in Bethlehem that is even bigger than they imagined, then the honorable thing to do was to do the mission, you know, and they didn't have any need because the Magi themselves were worth 3 kingdoms. And so they said, we don't need to do that. We appreciate you offering. You're going to need this money later. And they did. They did, because the money wasn't just needed to get him from Bethlehem to Egypt and then back 3 or 4 years later to Judea. It was needed his whole time. And what about the journey? If you're going to hire a caravan of 30 plus people and you're going to journey for 14 to 16 years, you don't think that ain't going to cost anything? It's going to cost a pretty penny. But it's how responsible Joseph and his family was. And talking about somebody who understood mission. Oh my God, should Joseph ever understood mission? But remember, Joseph is left the earth 2 whole years before Jesus is crucified.
Right.
He's not even around during this time. So it's important to understand that the Lamasery, again, from the womb to the tomb and beyond, we had somebody with baby Jesus, teenage Jesus, Jesus in his 20s, And for a good part of that time, we had multiple people. We had conscious and some unconscious people that were part of that caravan that made that journey for 14 to 16 years. They saw all this. John says in the gospel, I saw him grow from grace to grace. It was amazing. And everybody was shocked because, all of us know about proteges. I want you to think about a protege that that accomplished. They said Mozart was writing concertos at 5 or 6 years old on the piano, right? It's amazing when you think about it. But imagine the Father's protege. I want you to think about this for a minute. So all the outer teachings were just for him to remember what he already knew on the inside because he's God's firstborn child. So his wake up was like this. Why is that important? Well, according to the Lamasery, who we call Uncle Enoch, had a significant wake up in his time, but it took 365 years to totally wake up. You don't think health and longevity and spirituality are important and go together? Enoch tells that story very well. Boganathar, our first Lama, tells that story very, very well. But Jesus, within 12 to 14 years, he's a master of masters. And it's amazing but yet then he demonstrates serenity and humbleness in a way that probably no other human on the planet's ever done. And it's incredible the heart and the love that he had for humanity. I said it today in the Daily Lama. People think about falling in love with Abba. You can't fall in love with Abba until you do enough mirror meditations to fall in love with yourself that prepares for Lama. You see, first there's self-realization before there's God realization. But you have to learn to fall in love with humanity. You have to fall in love with Abba's creation. If we don't learn to love Abba's creation, if we've got judgment, if we don't like what somebody says and somebody does, and we're always prejudging them, all of this blocks the Holy Spirit. The moment you put on the judgment vibration, the worry vibration, you shut down your chakras, you shut down your portals, you no longer. And before you can feel God's love, you have to feel it all. There's so many people on the planet today, especially a lot of males, that don't want to feel a thing. That's why there's so much alcohol abuse. There's so much drug abuse. Let's just numb ourselves so we don't have to feel anything. Let's just turn on Fox News and Newsmax and all these other so that we can just all sit around and get drunk and numb so we don't have to feel anything, which basically means you're not living. What you need to understand is just like our physical body is an extension of our mind, our feelings are the outer form of our spirit. And we have to clean the feelings up so that God can feed his spirit in our spirit, because that's oil and water in the beginning, because that 4D spirit is all messed up from all the pain, all the suffering. And when you're arguing with your children and you're disrespecting your mother and your dad, you're disrespecting your Father in heaven. And I don't know, they say in the Gospel of John, the greatest thing is a friend would lay down his life for another. And there's a lot of truth in that. But to lay down your life for humanity, that's what happened. This man is responsible, because you got to know Jesus, the man, to know Jesus is God's firstborn son. Because if you don't know Jesus the man, you won't be able to know Jesus who he really is. He was willing to do something that nobody else was willing to do. And to take that kind of pain and that punishment. And all of us have suffered, and all of us have been at the brunt of making other people suffer. As Jesus said, there's not one of us without sin. Cast the first stone. There's not one of us. And Paul said it best. We're not perfected beings, but let us follow the Christ and go on into perfection.